Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see you again. Happy Sabbath again. Today I'm going to talk about the trap of the common good. I became interested in this topic a couple of months ago when it was the graduation at MSU. It's in May. And I had a student that graduated with her PhD, because I am a professor at Michigan State. And the commencement address for the PhD graduation at Michigan State University was given by none other than Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, the talk, the commencement address was given by Anthony Fauci, and I heard his talk. His talk was very interesting, and he called people that question him conspiracy theories and anti-scientists and all kinds of things. And he mentioned that we need to work for the common good several times in his talk. Many times he mentioned the common good. And it dawned on me that the common good idea was the source of most of the troubles we went through and a lot of the justification for atrocities in history. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, the trap of the common good, because it sounds good, but it is bad. All right. So, all right. So the common good is often used as a justification for the mandates and lockdowns during COVID. We were told you need to take the vaccine or use the mask for the common good. Fauci and others, like I mention the common good often. So I talked about the MSU PhD graduation talk, where he said we need to work for the common good, and he called for the graduates to work for the common good. So in this talk, he put down people that questioned him and that questioned the effectiveness of the vaccines, but he himself called the vaccine suboptimal in a 2023 paper. And I put the link and the reference there for whoever wants to find it. It's a paper that has two co-authors. It's Dr. Fauci and two other people. And he compares the COVID vaccines to influenza vaccines. And he says that the virus has become adapted to the vaccination immunity, and that the effectiveness is not as good as the beginning, and effectively calls them suboptimal. That's the word that he used himself. And this is a quote directly from this paper. This is from the horse's mouth. However, as variant SARS-CoV-2 strains have emerged, in other words, Delta and Omicron and all the new ones now, deficiencies of these vaccines reminiscent of influenza vaccines have become apparent. They have become clear. The vaccines for these two very different viruses have common characteristics. They elicit incomplete and short-lived protection against evolving means changing, evolving various variants that escape population immunity. This, what is written right there, was the reason why I gave the justification. What was the number one reason for me not to get the vaccine in the beginning? Because I thought coronaviruses change rapidly, evolve, however you want to call it, they change rapidly, and the more people become vaccinated, the more there's population immunity, the more we are forcing the virus to adapt to vaccination immunity, and the less protected the vulnerable will be. So the people who are really vulnerable of COVID, and that maybe as a personal option would have chosen to get vaccinated, those people would be less protected if we as a society all get vaccinated versus that if we didn't. That is what I was thinking from the very beginning, and I wrote it in my letter of exemption. And Fauci in 2023 is saying what I was saying in 2020 and in 2021 when I was being forced at the threat of firing from taking the vaccine. So what I figured is that they see the thing, so they can tell the truth, and we're not allowed to say it until they say it first. Right. It is wrong, it is prohibited, it is censored until they say it. But I was saying it from the beginning and getting threat of firing and all of that for saying exactly that. Exactly what Fauci said. And so he mentioned the common good. So and all these things were done with the justification of the common good. The common good is mentioned in talks, in TV programs, podcasts. The common good term is used by both conservatives and liberals. Okay? There's beautiful talks with very nice background music about the common good in the web and YouTube. You search the common good, all kinds of praises about the common good as a philosophy. So the common good is part of Catholic social doctrine. Okay? It's called Catholic social doctrine. And as a philosophical idea, it was first discussed by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century. This was several centuries ago. Okay? By Thomas Aquinas, which is a very important, a key philosopher in Catholic theology. Okay? And the common good, the idea that was penned down by Thomas Aquinas, he did not invent the idea. If you read history books, if you even read in Jesus' Resurrection that I will talk about later, the concept of the common good was already existed in the past. But Thomas Aquinas packaged it, wrote it down, made it a central part of Catholic theology. Okay? The common good assumes that a city or community is more important than an individual, and the well-being of a group is more important than each individual. In other words, looking at the benefit of the community and not the individual. Okay? The more Anglo-Saxon way of thinking about this, or the Protestant way of thinking about this, is that the general interest results for the sum interest of each. In other words, if I treat each one of you appropriately and justly, let's say I'm a judge, which I'm not, I'm a professor, let's say I'm a judge, if I judge each one justly, all together, that ends up being for the good of society. By doing right by each one. If I don't steal from you, if I don't kill from each person in front of me, if I behave morally, rightly, justly by each person that is in front of me, as a group, this ends up good for society. If each one of us does the right thing with whoever we interact, that ends up in a good society. But that's a very different, this is very different from what the common good is, which I'll explain. This is the correct way to view things, and it's the liberal way to view individual rights. Okay? In other words, I can't, let's say, if I can't kill a person even though they're innocent, if that means that it'll result in the common good for the benefit of others. I need to do justly by that individual. Doing right by the person in front of you is the priority. And that is the right way to view this. It respects individual freedom. This assumes that if we do the just and right thing for each individual, like I said, don't steal, don't kill individual, respect the freedom of speech and religion, this results in a better society as a whole. Because in the end, we're all individuals. Okay? So, the idea of the common good, and I put social justice, but I see social justice as a branch of common good, of the same thinking. The idea of social justice of the common good is actually injustice. To give an example, if you have a brain surgeon, let's say this brain surgeon it's a whatever race. Let's say this brain surgeon is a white man. And in his job, he's discriminated against and not selected, and instead a person with less qualifications is selected for social justice reasons. We have done that individual an injustice, an individual injustice, but a social justice. Now, that job will not be done as excellently, because if that man was the most qualified for the job, he would do the best brain surgeries, right? And all his patients would have been benefited if the best person qualified for the job would have been selected, instead of being selected for social justice reasons. Okay? So, all society will be negatively affected by this decision. So society is better if we judge rightly and be fair and do right by each individual. And as a sum, this makes society better. So doing the right thing by each individual works so good that people want to live in those societies. Now tell me, when you had East Germany and West Germany, where did people from West Germany jump the fence to go to East Germany?
No.
No, it was, I think that wall was mainly to keep people from East Germany from going to the other side. Now, that protection and barbed wire and wall in North Korea, is it to keep the South Koreans going into the North Korea to enjoy the common good? No. No. The point is that societies that value the individual and value freedom work so well that people want to go. Sometimes they're willing to risk their lives to go to these societies, okay, where liberties and rights of individual are respected. When societies that are run in a communal way, people escaped because they're not allowed freedom of speech or religion. Their property is confiscated for the common good. That happened in my country in the 70s. Time, people that have too much property was taken away from them for the common good and distributed to others from 1970 to 1973. But this has not only happened in my country, this has happened in several places, okay? And you can imagine that the economy tanked with those kind of decisions, okay? Because, you know, production of everything went down, agriculture and all kinds of factories, etc. Or they are coerced to do a number of things that are against their interest, health, or conscience for the common good. The common good sounds good, but it's bad. Okay? So the common good has been used as an excuse for many atrocities and genocides. So I do not support the concept of the common good. So the common good was used as excuse for the genocides and injustices, like for example during World War II. The Nazis' 25-point program, this exists, and I'm going to show the Nazis' 25-point program towards the end, said in point 18, so point 18 of the Nazis' 25-point program says, we demand struggle without consideration against those whose activity is injurious to the general interest. So those whose activity are against the general interest, we demand struggle without consideration. And then in point 24 of the Nazis' 25-point doctrine, it says, 25 points, it says the common interest over individual interest. Or other translations say the common good over individual good. Of course, this was written in original German. Many translations says the common good over individual good. So, the Nazis used the idea of the common good to justify atrocities. We can kill the Jews for the common good, for the benefit of the German race. We can take away property of people for the common good of society. We can, and people, good people, that were good fathers, that were good mothers, could do atrocities, could participate in these things with a clear conscience, because they were doing this for the common good. Ayn Rand, in 1944, wrote regarding the common good, throughout history, no tyrant ever rose to power except on the claim of representing the common good. Napoleon served the common good of France. Hitler was serving the common good of Germany. Horrors which no man would dare consider for his own selfish sake are perpetrated with a clear conscience by altruists who justify themselves by the common good. This was Ayn Rand. This came out in the Reader's Digest in 1944. The thinking, the common good thinking, can be clearly seen in the crucifixion. It says, when Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor considering that it's expedient," or simply said better, "for us, that one man should die for the people, than the whole nation perish not." In other words, it's better to kill him even though he's innocent, to save the nation. He was justifying the atrocity of crucifying an innocent man for the common good, because since Jesus was being seen as possibly, he was being called king, he was being seen as a threat, as a threat because the Romans could attack them. I think they were jealous of Jesus and was using this as an excuse, but they were using the excuse that the nation was at risk and that crucifying this innocent man was justified in order to save the nation. That is the common good thinking. The common good is dangerous. Things need to be judged at the individual level. This excuse of the common good was used to coerce people to undertake medical treatments that might not be beneficial for the individual. Like children were not benefited by the vaccines because their risk of COVID was literally zero.
Yes.
Okay, was very, very low. Almost no, I mean, close to zero children in the world died of COVID if they were perfectly healthy. See, children and young people were at extremely low risk of COVID. So whatever the risk of the vaccine was, which was not very high, it's not like people took the vaccine and fell dead, all of them, but there was some risk. Okay, there is some risk of myocarditis, there is some risk of pericarditis. It's kind of debatable, the risk level there. There is other risk also. There's several papers that come up with other risks. Whatever that risk is not justified for children whose risk of dying of COVID is zero. It is not significantly different from zero. Okay, so a treatment that was not beneficial for the individually, but supposedly worked for the common good. It did not turn out for the common good anyways, because the vax still got COVID and gave it to others. Okay, so it didn't work out anyways. But even if it did, even if the vaccine worked perfect, and people that got vaccinated did not get COVID, it's still not justified to coerce people whose risk is zero to risk injury to themselves for the common good of society. It is not justified to coerce people. People need to be able to make those kind of decisions on their own. Okay? Okay. The common good should not be used to eliminate rights protected by the Bill of Rights, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and the right to informed consented medical treatment. Okay? The United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights protects freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and none of those things were respected under the justification of the common good. And this is nothing new. Every tyrant, almost every atrocity in the past has been justified by the common good. I mentioned Hitler in the past. I mentioned the crucifixion. Ayn Rand mentioned Napoleon. If you think about the atrocities in Russia, Stalin, he also used the common good as a justification to kill his enemies for the good of society.
Saddam Hussein.
Yes, pretty much all these people, they use the common good, the justification of, for the good of society, we will sacrifice this individual or this group of people. So the common good is not a tool of God. I would call it is a perversion of the truth, and is used by Satan. So it sounds good, you're working for the good of society, because the closer a lie is to the truth, the easier it is to deceive people. And I think the common good is very related to the truth. It sounds good, you're going to benefit society. Everybody, all good people want to benefit society, but it twists things a bit. It benefits society by running over the rights that are given by God, divinely given to us for God, the rights of liberty, the right of bodily autonomy, the right of conscience to choose what we will believe, the freedom of speech. Those are not things given to us by men. They are provided by God in the very creation, because God gave people, Adam and Eve, He gave them the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. They could choose to eat it or not to eat it. And He gives us all a choice. So God gives us choice. And coercion is not of God. Because the way that I think about this, I think about it kind of like in marriage. You know, like if a man kidnaps a woman and forces her in her house, marries her by force and keeps her locked out, is that love? No. Yeah, I think that's called rape. Yeah. So, but if the woman marries the man with love because she loves him, and stayed with him because she loves him, and has, you know, and that's love. And it can only be love as long as she's free to leave whenever she wants. The moment she's not free to leave whenever she wants, it's no longer love. You know? Then it becomes coercion. So I think the common good is close to the truth, but it has enough poison on it, enough satanic poison on it to make it extremely dangerous, because tyrants and governments can use the common good to justify any atrocity they can come up with. So the shortest and clearest way to summarize the common good, what it means is the 24th point of the Nazis' 25-point program, the common interest over individual interest. Okay? And I want to show you the 25 points of Hitler's Nazi Party. I would encourage you to read the 25 points. A lot of the points here are what society is pushing now. If you read them, you will recognize, okay, you will recognize a lot of the things. You will recognize now. If you see point 18, this is okay. Point. Let me see. Let's see point 24 there. The point 24, it says, we demand freedom for religious faith in the state insofar as they do not endanger the existence or offend the moral ethics sense of the Germanic race. In other words, we give her freedom of religion if we like what you're saying, and it doesn't offend us, and it doesn't go against the Germanic race. I've heard many people, I support free speech, but not hate speech. If you support free speech and you don't support hate speech, you don't support free speech. Because what is hate speech? Hate speech is speech that is very offensive to someone else. And do you think some of our biblical beliefs are not very offensive to the world right now? They are very offensive to some of the people in the world right now. Okay, if you say that God only allows marriage between one man and one woman, right, is that hate speech in our current society? Yes. It is hate speech in our current society. But that you cannot be a Bible-believing Christian and not believe what God says. If if I'm going to take the Bible seriously, that's what the Bible teaches. So, we as Christians should understand clearly that free speech should include hate speech. Hate speech should be permitted, because if it's not permitted, we can be defined out of free speech protection. Okay, that's very easy. Just make whatever, hate speech is a sensitive. I am not I don't insult anyone. I don't think hate speech is beautiful, the way that people use hate speech, but we need free speech to be true free speech. People need to be able to say things that are offensive to others in order for free speech to be free. Because if free speech is only, if you only allow speech of people and things that you support, then it's not very free. Because everybody supports speech of those they agree with, right?
Just like when Jesus said, you've got to love your enemies and pray for those that hurt you and despitefully use you, because you can love your family and your friends, no problem.
Yeah, that's no problem.
That's easy, but if you love your enemies, that's huge.
That's huge, that's right.
Ask us to do that.
That's right. And God requires of us, He asks of us to allow other people to have freedom that He gives us. We should not be tyrants. We should provide other people the choice to serve Him or not to serve Him. To listen to us or not listen to us. To believe what we believe or not believe what we believe. We should provide them the liberties that we want to be provided. The Bible says, do unto others what you will want them to do for you. So we should provide freedom of speech and religion to people of other religions, to Muslims, to Catholics, to atheists. They have also freedom to follow their conscience, and we should provide that to them. Okay? It is possible, and it has been done in the past, that Christianity has persecuted people that did not agree with them. Like a great example of this would be like the Inquisition. That was also the spirit of Satan. It is the same spirit. For the common good, they were justifying killing, stretching, and all kinds of atrocities to people that did not agree with them. They were persecuting in the Spanish Inquisition Jews, Muslims, and this was wrong. In the true Spirit of God, we do not do this. Okay? So you can see there, as a party, as such represent the point view of a positive Christianity without binding itself to any one particular confession. It fights against the Jewish materialist spirit within and without, and is convinced that a lasting recovery of our folk can only come about from within one principle: common good before individual good. That is the one principle that was going to lead to the success of the Nazi Party. And that is the one principle we should not follow. Okay? So the common good was used as a justification for all the atrocities of the Nazis, all the atrocities of Stalin, atrocities, you name it, any dictator, they used the common good. So, I would encourage all of you to follow the idea, instead of the common good, follow the Anglo-Saxon idea of this, or the Protestant idea, is that the benefit of society is benefited when we do right by each individual in front of us. When we say the truth to them, when we don't lie to them, when we don't steal from them, when we don't kill them, when we allow them freedom of speech, when we allow them freedom of religion, when we allow the atheist to not believe, when we allow the Muslim to worship God according to his conscience, when we allow people to have bodily autonomy, to take the vaccine if they want, or not take the vaccine if they want. So that is the right way. The right way is to do the right thing by the person in front of you and to provide them liberty of speech, liberty of conscience, freedom of association, to meet with whoever they want. That is really good for good society and not the common good, because the common good sacrifices the individual on the supposed benefit of the community. Okay, so thank you so much for your invitation.
Thank you.